Greetings all. Mercury here, your friendly neighborhood lunatic. I'm going to start by reading a comment from my last live stream, The Strongest of the Strange. So Anne Smith was kind enough to share with us the following. In regards to what I get out of this channel, and I hope I'm not being redundant, I'll give an example. Recently, I responded to someone who was asserting basically that we are our productivity. In other words, if you feel bad about yourself or if you are depressed, it's because you haven't achieved enough in life. And essentially, you should be depressed. As someone who has battled multiple mental illnesses, there was a time this might have really hurt. I measured my life in terms of superficial achievements. After a lot of work, a lot of therapy, time, and then finding your voice, I felt empowered to say, you can challenge my self-worth, but I'm not buying it. That was a huge milestone for me, one I doubt I would have achieved without your voice. You're the only outspoken, unashamed, mentally ill person I know of, and you have helped me profoundly in my path to self-acceptance. So in case you're wondering what people get out of it, that's how I feel. Now, that message really touched me because I had a similar experience myself with Sascha Altman DuBrul. I heard him, a recording of him live on the radio, and he was just casually and completely unashamed, open about being bipolar. And for me, that was the beginning of my starting to actually deal with being a lunatic rather than just either being in denial about it or anyway, you have to accept the situation before you can really change it. And so I know from personal experience how profoundly difficult it can be to accept that you're insane. Hey, Gloff, thanks for joining us. I'll check the comments more later. I want to do a bit of reading first, but I'll check the comments when I'm done. So anyway, it can be extremely difficult to accept that you're insane, and that is the best place to start from to learn how to manage it properly. And so I decided to come on and share. I'm going to be reading from Maps to the Other Side by Sascha Altman DuBrul, because Sascha was to me what I am to some of you out there. Oh, and you're actually here. That's fucking awesome. Okay. And it's not just you this is for everyone out there who's crazy and a part of this community, whether you've reached out to me so far or not. And this is for anyone new out there. But it was your message specifically I read at the beginning. So I'm glad you're here. So I'm going to do a little reading now from an awesome book. Everyone who is interested should check out. I don't know if that shows or not. So the book is Maps to the Other Side, The Adventures of a Bipolar Cartographer by Sascha Altman DuBrul. And he was my Mercury Black. He was my person who was publicly and unashamedly bipolar, who really helped me accept the fact of it and start learning to manage it. Hey, Daniel, good to see you. All right, so this is from the introduction. Introduction, Making Maps to the Other Side. Look into my eyes, and I'll tell you a story about this kid who got lost wandering the train tracks in outer space. Made his way back by leaving a trail of candy wrappers and love letters, and one day he woke up and was right back where he started. I had the strangest dream, Auntie M. I was wandering the streets mad and kissed beautiful women and walked through war zones and swam in waterfalls and created a new language with my friends and felt the entire city breathing in my fucked up lungs. I wrote a book about it in the future so I could go back and change the past. And then I met myself in the mirror and only recognized what was happening when he looked me square in the eyes and told me it was my responsibility to write the next chapter. Welcome to the inside of my mind. The stories in this book are the personal maps through my jagged lands of brilliance and madness. They're mostly adventure stories, unapologetically wild and free, and full of love for the underdogs, the marginalized, and mad ones. They are personal stories about the things that I love: traveling free, growing food, saving seeds, and being a part of radical social and political movements. They are also stories about madness and manic depression, visionary and grandiose, and sometimes messy. I was 18 years old the first time I got locked up in the psych ward. Once I got out and put the pieces back together, I was determined to live my dreams loud and proud. After I ended up in the psych system a couple more times, I had the vision and inspiration to find others like me and build community to change the whole culture of mental health and illness. Those of us who've been through the rough times and almost not made it out, whether through failed suicides, near-death accidents, or psychotic breakdowns that land us in white padded rooms. We come out the other side with knowledge that can only be learned from living close to death. We understand things that other people don't about the tenuousness and preciousness of life, and we have the choice to make meaning from the horror we carry around with us. We find strands of wisdom waiting for us in the depths of our nightmares. We come out the other side with scars that stay with us through our lifetimes. And the scars become part of the maps we use to guide us along our paths. If I want to get through this mad life, I've realized I have to make tangible maps for myself. I make them in my journals. I write them in the stories I share with friends. I use words and metaphors and parables, and sometimes very concrete reminders that help me stay on the path. Remember to breathe into your belly. Remember to sleep for 8 hours tonight. Remember, you are part of a movement much larger than yourself. Over the years, I've learned to chart my dips and peaks, learned to cultivate the grounding I need to come back to center, learned to pick myself up out of the depths, and rope myself back in when I'm flying too high. I leave clues for myself in the darkness. Some of them are obvious and clear as day, and some of them are written in code, only decipherable when I'm in the head states that need to hear them. The contours of my internal terrain are complex and serrated, carved from a life of adventure and pain and deep determination to make sense of it all, to build bridges with others like me so we feel less alienated and alone. I have scars from climbing over barbed wire fences between the borders of depression and mania, and getting my heart broken and patching it back together with pieces from the sea and the land and the sky. My inner landscape is full of canyons and rivers and makeshift dams. Pleasure and trauma cut grooves into my soil like new streams during flash floods. I build stone walls to control my emotions, and inevitably they grow old and obsolete, like monuments to old fears, leaving me with puzzles of how to dismantle them. My internal landscape is sometimes like an unstable government with shifting borders, young, nervous men with guns waiting along chain link fences, and bandits waiting to rob me in the shadows. I wait till nightfall to make the long journey through the desert of my mind. In this story I'm telling you, I'm the illegal aliens and the Border Patrol. I police myself the way I was taught. Let's get this clear. Even though I use the word bipolar in the title of this book, I don't believe in the biomedical model of mental illness. I don't think I have a disease or a disorder. I think biopsychiatry is just one of many stories we choose to tell ourselves, and there's nothing sacred or solid about it. The modern psychiatric labels locate the problem within individuals. And in trying to fix us, they can be more about maintaining the current economic system than about helping us understand ourselves. The disease model is the story that currently dominates and erases so many other important stories. I believe in the power of people's stories and in the power of language, metaphor, and collective narratives. I have come to believe that one of the keys to our larger political struggles lies in our ability to own and rewrite our own personal stories. So that was from the introduction, and I'm going to jump ahead a bit now and share part of one of the stories later in the book. So this one's called Too Close to the Sun. I was at my house in Oakland when the phone call came. A mutual friend in the Midwest. Oh, by the way, this story is true. This is from Sascha's life. It's not a fictional short story. So, I was at my house in Oakland when the phone call came. A mutual friend in the Midwest heard from her friend in Oregon about a girl on the East Coast who jumped off a bridge. She thought it might be a rumor, a crazy story that sometimes happens in our travelers' community, a big game of international telephone. I didn't believe it. Nah, man, I just talked to Sarah a week ago. She was going traveling and had a ticket to Europe in February. She said she'd been a little down, but she didn't sound so bad. She always goes through her waves of depression like the rest of us. But my heart was beating fast. My fingers were starting to shake. So I called her house in West Philly. The voicemail picked up, and when it said press 2 for Sarah, I was greeted by her cheery voice. Hi, this is Sarah. Leave me a message and I'll get back to you when I can. Beep. Hello? Sarah? I just heard this rumor that you killed yourself. I really hope it's just a rumor. I'm going to be pissed at you if you killed yourself. Hear me? So call me when you get this message, all right? I love you. Bye. I hung up the phone. For the first couple months after my dad's death, I had this reoccurring dream where he and I were talking on the telephone. It wasn't always the same backdrop. Sometimes it was from a payphone in the street, sometimes from the kitchen at my mom's house, sometimes from school. But the same thing would always happen. We'd say goodbye, hang up the phone. Then I'd suddenly remember he was dead. Confused, I'd pick up the phone and dial the number, and the mechanical operator would come on and say the number had been disconnected. I'd wake up with my heart beating really fast and wish that I had my dad back. I met Sarah in the summer of 1999. I was recovering from being locked up in the psych ward, working on an organic farm north of New York City. She'd been working at the Victoria Gardens project in Maine and wrote me a letter about one of my zines. I wrote back and she boldly invited herself to visit me at the farm. She impressed me. She was intimidating smart, quoting Baldwin and Faulkner from memory, eloquently articulating her revolutionary critiques of global capitalism, teaching me about the horrors of 20th century Eastern European history, and knowing the lyrics to all my favorite Crass songs. She was also strikingly beautiful. She had this amazing smile and this olive Armenian skin that was dark from working in the fields, dreadlocks that hung down to her shoulders, and these deep brown eyes that would constantly study my facial expressions and try to read me, searching for the meaning in everything I said. She was passionate about everything she did, which was a whole lot. She threw herself into the middle of the struggle wherever she went, and she went a lot of places. As we got to know each other, she took off to rural Nicaragua to work on a construction project with a group of women in a Sandinista village. Her traveler's energy was infectious and helped inspire me to remember the parts I liked about myself, hidden under my layers of self-doubt and depression. It was obvious from the first time we hung out that Sarah wasn't afraid to feel strong emotions and dream big dreams. Underneath tattoos and attitude, Sarah was insecure, struggling with her identity and feeling out of place. But she had this brilliance that shined. She'd tell me with a smile that she was going to be a famous writer one day. She took herself too seriously, but knew how to make fun of herself at the same time. She had a sarcastic, biting, punk rock sense of humor and didn't take my shit without dishing it back twice as hard. I fell for her for sure. This next part's quote, someone speaking to Sascha. It's true, man. She's dead. I'm sorry to have to be the one to tell you. Things have been strange around here the last couple days, said Spam in West Philadelphia. I called his house after talking to Sarah's voicemail. Everyone around here's freaking out. You two are really close, huh? I'm really sorry. Shock, disbelief, as the tears started down my face. I could feel this unfamiliar emotion rising up inside of me, the way you feel unfamiliar muscles in your body the day after doing a new exercise. It really hurt. Sarah and I had a lot in common. We were hopeless romantics who suffered from wanderlust. We waxed poetic over freight trains and the call of the open road. She was a great traveling partner. We loved gathering stories in our travels and were obsessed with recording history as it unfolded, but also making our own and illuminating the meaning of our experiences as young traveling anarchists at the end of the millennium. We loved punk rock, the music, of course, but the cultural scene that had nurtured us as teenagers and made us feel somewhere that we belonged. Sarah was a couple years younger than me, a few generations in punk rock years, and she'd make tapes for me of bands she loved that had come around after my time, like Young Pioneers and Anti-Product. I'd tell her stories about going to Nausea and Missing Foundation shows at the old squats on the Lower East Side. We spoke a similar language. We loved words and communicating. Her letters were a crafty mix of English, Spanish, and broken French, with a periodic smattering of Armenian from her childhood. We shared intense common ground because we had a lot of the same neurosis and insecurities. In our own ways, we both tried to shirk our sheltered, educated, upper middle class backgrounds by dropping out of school to hang out on the streets and learn lessons the hard way. We both had a lot to prove to ourselves and the people around us. We were never satisfied with our work, no matter how much we were doing. We threw ourselves into crazy situations to feel alive, to feel things intensely. We were running from the ghosts of our childhood and found peace on the open road, in the excitement of the new, the stories of strangers, and in the struggle for justice. We were both manic depressive. Mike Antipathy called from Maryland, his voice breaking up on the message. He and Greg Wells and Amy Keller had gone to the bridge Sarah had jumped from on their way back to Richmond from the funeral in New York. Greg said, "It was beautiful, man. That's the crazy part. You could almost see the ocean from the bridge. It was so peaceful." He was crying just a little, and I could picture the expression on his somber face as we talked and bonded in the intense way that mutual friends do when their connecting link is suddenly gone. When we hung up, I found the bridge on the road atlas, north of Baltimore on the I-95, the Susquehanna River feeding into Chesapeake Bay, feeding into the Atlantic Ocean, death by water. Painful. All that time in the air to think about what you've done, the finality. And I am not scared looking at myself. If anything, I'll recognize the real truth of who I am. Sarah's cryptic words in her last piece for Slug and Lettuce, the newspaper we both had a column in. How long had she been planning it? How long did she torture herself with thought before she finally got the nerve to do it? I shuddered and took a deep breath. When the depression comes, it's like having lead weights on all your limbs and thoughts and feelings and emotions. It's not just being really sad. I'm sad because of Sarah's death, but I'm not depressed. Imagine for a second that all your deepest and worst insecurities have risen to the surface and are present with you wherever you go. Every conversation you have is accompanied by a second internal dialogue, telling you in real time that everything coming out of your mouth is full of shit, and that you're a liar and a hypocrite and a coward. And you better kill yourself as soon as you can, before everyone finds out how fucked up you really are. And then imagine that the pain and shame of hating yourself is so great that the thoughts of ending your life are constant, like a broken record. Throwing yourself in front of a moving car, jumping out of windows, gun in the back of the head, carbon monoxide in the garage, a handful of pills. It's both exhausting and horrible, and it feels like it's never going to end. The couple times it has happened to me, I've stopped being able to take care of myself. I get cuts in my hands and don't tend to them, even after they get infected and nasty. I get confused and scattered, lose sense of direction, and get lost in neighborhoods I know like the back of my hand. I shut down. I stop being able to go to work and buy groceries. I stop being able to communicate with anyone because I can't formulate sentences between the black noise and records skipping in my brain. Everything seems pointless and irrelevant because I know I'm going to be dead soon. The only thing I seem to remember is to eat, and that's what I do. I eat until I'm sick because I'm craving something that I'm not getting. And then I feel like shit because I'm not even paying attention to what my body wants or needs. I stop being able to get out of bed. I curl up in a ball and wish someone would put me out of my misery. My life is one big mistake. And no matter how many times I've come out of it, each new time it feels like it's never going to end. I can't really get mad at her. Sarah wasn't in control of herself when she jumped off that bridge. She just wanted the pain to end. She felt so uncomfortable in her skin that she couldn't take it anymore. Suicide is not a malicious act. The year before, I spent 4 months suicidal and psychotic, stuck in a miserable halfway house for people with severe mental illnesses. Manic depression is a sickness, a disease, but it's more complicated because it's the most brilliant and talented people who are cursed with it. It's a blessing and a curse, an imbalance of chemicals that torment, but lets them see and feel things other people can't, allows them to create art and music and words that grab people by the heart and soul, allows them to kiss the sky and come down to tell the tale. There just aren't the words in our vocabularies to talk about it. I don't like disease at all. It doesn't capture what's going on because it's so two-sided. On the flip side of all that horror lies so much beauty. But the fact is that although there's so much we still don't know about manic depression. We do know it's genetic, passed down through the generations, through blood. It's brought out by environmental factors like a fucked up childhood, but only for those who are genetically predisposed to it. You can't get it by watching too much television and eating too many Pop-Tarts as a youth. Sarah was sensitive to the pain of others because she truly knew what pain felt like. She had an incredible head on her shoulders that raced with a fury and drew connections in seconds. The structure of her written sentences reflect a mind that could juggle multiple subjects with ease. She was a brilliant thinker and had a haunting way with words. She knew how to paint a picture in text and relay it to you like a priceless gift. She had an extraordinary memory. She talked about going to school for environmental law, and we knew she could do it, but she was tormented by the demons inside her. She struggled for justice and peace wherever she went, but she didn't know how to treat herself justly or what it was like to be at peace. So that's what I decided to come on and share with everyone out there. For anyone else who's at that stage of being insane and not knowing how to accept and deal with it, that are still stuck in all the shame and fear and guilt and regret, you're not alone. There's plenty of us out there like that. And so the book, Daniel says, what's the book again? So it's Maps to the Other Side by Sascha Altman DuBrul. Okay, so Caesar, hi. Great to see you here. It's not a squirrel, it's a chipmunk behind me. Grizz, hey Grizz, answered that already. Spartacus says, yep, that's my phobia, all right. People committing suicide, geez. Yeah, and like Sascha, I don't blame anyone who does. No one can judge that who hasn't been there. And even with as much suicidal depression as I've been through, if someone else didn't make it out of there, maybe they had it worse. So I don't judge anyone else, but I really don't think that's the way. I think it's better to stick it out and look for whatever help there is out there. And if you don't have anywhere else, you have here. You have Sorting Myself Out. I mean, this place isn't just for nut jobs. We're here to help everyone through sorting themselves out. But in particular for the nut jobs out there, I'm here for you. I'm completely insane too. I've had total psychotic breaks, been in the mental institution, been suicidally depressed. So I don't know exactly what it's like for you, but I've been through similar shit, and carrying around any shame or guilt for just being mentally ill just makes it harder. So it seems like there's a need currently for people to step up and be publicly insane so that everyone else doesn't feel so alone. And for now, I'm happy to step forward and do that for all of you out there who are lost and alone and don't know how to deal with things. And not just me, Ryan's here to help everyone out as well, and the community here has been fantastic. So I've gotten a lot of comments and emails and shit thanking me for what I'm doing and saying how brave it is. But I do also want to give the credit. Obviously, there's a lot of credit owed to Andrew for starting this channel, and to Andrew for treating me with respect and valuing me as an individual and asking me to do this. A lot of credit goes to Ryan, of course. I wouldn't be able to run this channel without him. But also a lot of credit goes to all the audience members and everyone who's been on the channel to talk to us. Like Tim Freak and Paul Vanderklay as well. Not just audience members, but, you know, great philosopher and great preacher from down south with his own channel. Just, they just treated me like a valuable human being. The fact that I was bipolar didn't seem to bother them in the slightest. While there's been a couple people who've left rude comments or said insulting things about me, it hasn't been very much at all. And there's been a massive amount of support. So everyone out there who has taken me seriously and treated me kindly, and especially for those of you who've taken the time to comment or come on the channel and to show publicly that you value me as an individual, and it's not even despite the fact that I'm crazy, but to a large degree because of it. That's where all the interest in me comes from, is it's because I'm crazy, not despite it, that anyone's interested in hearing anything I have to say. So thank you to the whole community for creating this space, because not only is it nice for me, but it shows other people out there who are feeling particularly fucked up and lost and alone, that not everybody's going to see them that way. So we got some positive feedback. And says, beautiful Mercury, James and Justice both say thank you. And yeah, I don't know how much else I have to say. Does anyone else here have anything to say on this topic? Do we want to talk more about mental illness or bad pride? Or I'm pretty emotionally exhausted. We could just wrap this up and cut it short. Or we could veer off that topic now and just take a couple questions about anything at all, if anyone just wants to hang out for a bit. So I'm not sure what to do right now. I'll read the next couple questions or comments and see where this goes. So Boy Meets Wart is here, another one of the people who's been very supportive of us. And he says, you guys are awesome. I've got a friend who's struggling with bipolar and has recently flipped back to manic. You really helped me understand his mental state and what he's going through. Cheers to you guys. Well, thanks for that. And I think once Ryan's got time to start doing talks, like recording things, I think we were just waiting for the right time to have you on sometime, weren't we? But if not, this is an invitation to, once me and Ryan both have time and we're recording sessions with community members again. If you wanted to come on sometime, we could talk about anything, all sorts of shit. But if you wanted to talk more about your friend, obviously, like, keep your friend anonymous so we can just talk in general about what it's like to be bipolar. Maybe we can have a good conversation for people out there who have family or friends. Yeah, because I guess maybe there's conversations needed to be had publicly for the sake of people who are mentally ill. But also, it's really fucking hard for family and friends to have someone insane that you love. What I went through, especially with all the fucking problems I caused in the past, was just horribly difficult on my immediate family. So there's probably a lot of conversations that need to be had publicly as well about and for the sake of people with loved ones that are lunatics. Jeffrey says, what's important? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you ask a longer question, I'll try to address it. Ann Smith said, this live made my day. Thank you. Thank you, Ann, for being here. I'm so glad you were here. That comment made doing this stream for me. I can have that effect on just one person with each video. I love that. Okay, and so Boy Meets Wart is interested in coming on sometime. So yeah, once Ryan's got a bit more time and he's settled, we'll start doing recording conversations with audience members again. So looking forward to speaking with you more in depth. Also, for anyone else out there, whether you're crazy or not, anyone, we do have audience members. We haven't recorded any recently, but we will be doing it again. We have audience members on. We record calls with them. It's not live when we're with audience members so that things can be edited if you say something you regret or things get too personal or anything. But if you want to come on and talk about generally sorting yourself out, no matter who you are, if you're just aiming towards the good and looking for having a good faith, honest conversation about what you're dealing with, write to sorting myself out 0, like the number 0 at gmail.com, I think. Anyway, it's on the about section of the channel. Michael says, the story was, I don't know how to say it, thought-provoking, but not in an intellectual way. You know, something that inspires a moment of silence. I don't know the right word. Fair enough. I think you explained that fairly well. And so Grizz has a quote from the movie Contact, which I've seen but don't remember this quote. The only thing we've found that makes all the emptiness bearable is each other. That's a beautiful quote. And I don't want to disagree with that. I agree with it entirely. So this is perhaps paralogical, or something in the opposite can both be true, even though they sound like only one of them can. I would say that that's true. The only thing we found that makes all the emptiness bearable is each other. But I would also say that creation comes from simply speaking into the void. You put the word into the void, and that's all of creation. And that the void and the emptiness, like Tim Freak says, hidden in that and seemingly the foundation of it is good with a capital G. And so I know for you in particular, Grizz, you're not finding this at the moment. And from where you are, the only thing we find that makes all the emptiness bearable is each other, absolutely. But I've also found a connection to something that is in the emptiness and that is the void, that doesn't make it less empty, that is a connection to everything. Fuck, I don't know how to explain that better. And Boy Meets Wart says, God, that movie's so good. I love Carl Sagan so much. I haven't seen the movie in a long time. I did like the movie, but I didn't love it. And maybe the problem was I read the book first. And the book is obviously much better. So I find sometimes a movie's somewhat disappointing if you read the book first. Although that's the way I prefer to do it. If I'm going to read a book and watch a movie of something, I do prefer to read the book first, because usually the book's better, and I'd rather have the book uncontaminated by the visuals of the movie than the reverse. So while I enjoyed Contact, I was somewhat disappointed by it. But that's the side effect of reading an excellent book and then watching the movie. Daniel says that was Existential. That was a nice reading. Good. I'm glad people enjoyed it. Michael says engrossing, inspiring, a show of respect. I just feel that trying to add something will only detract from the reading. Yeah, fair point. And part of me even kind of wants to end the stream in a similar sort of way. But I'm not sure if that's the thing to do or not. So what do you guys think? Do we shut this down and just have a shorter Lunatic Live, or does anyone else have anything else they want to talk about? I could go either way with this. I could end it now, or we could talk more about this, or we could completely change the subject now. So from this point forward, anyone's free to completely change the subject. And for me, I know like it can feel weird after talking about something as heavy as suicide. But I don't think it will be disrespectful or anything if anyone wants to change the subject now. Michael says, anyway, I had a friend tell me, because something is meaningless, it doesn't follow that it's without value. So yeah, that little quote cured me of nihilism 10 years ago and never looked back. I like that, because something is meaningless, it doesn't follow that it's without value. Yeah, that's fucking beautiful. The last time I had tried to do a live stream responding to Anne's earlier comment, I had titled it something like Mad Pride and something, and that was the one where my computer got all fucked up and I couldn't continue it. But if anyone's interested, we could discuss Mad Pride. Right in the moment, I'm forgetting everything. The last time when I tried to stream and it didn't work, I had a lot to say about that. So has anyone out there heard of the Mad Pride movement? Is that gaining any traction at all whatsoever in the mainstream? Or is that still so underground that nobody's even heard of Mad Pride? While I see if anyone has anything to say about that, I will say I'm conflicted somewhat about using the word pride that way. Something pride. There's something dangerous in that. I do agree. I agree there's something to what Peterson says about, national pride and those things. On the other hand, if there's a particular group struggling with shame really badly, I find a pride movement can be necessary. And there's the dark side of pride and the light side of pride. So I don't know how I feel about the term mad pride. It's the one that was used, and I think that term started. Fuck, I don't even know when it started, but I think it started in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. And there are a few places. I think the first ones were in Toronto, but there have been Mad Pride parades around the world. Not many of them, I don't think, and I don't think they've gotten a whole lot of press. Because let's see here. Yeah, Dick Justice says, I haven't heard of it personally. Grizz says, I'm wrestling with sorting in the mad, like how sorting looks normal for most, but that for others, there's no template for what sorted looks like. Excellent point. You're not going to go the route, especially for people more fucking crazy than you. You're going to go the route of not trying to cure your mental illness, but learning to recognize it as a dangerous gift and learning how to manage it. We don't have good templates for that at all. But anyway, Gabbers says Mad Pride ? Daniel says Mad Pride ? And Grizz says I'd be down for replacing Mad Pride with all the best ones are. Yeah, and Mad Pride's not like my term or anything, so I can't replace it. But I do like the basic movement, and I mean I understand it because by saying Mad Pride, that explains it, because we've had gay pride for so long that it instantly communicates the basic idea. But I guess that's still underground enough that nobody else has heard of it. I've been wondering for a while if it's going to catch on, because there has been a certain amount of change in the public discussion where, don't we have a mental health day now? And there is a certain amount of outreach to people feeling suicidal. And there's beginning to be a bit of a stir of, you hear now and then publicly that people shouldn't be ashamed of their mental illnesses and should be able to discuss it publicly. But, the actual Mad Pride movement hasn't caught on enough that anyone here's heard of it. And especially with, like, recently, I've started to hear the term neurodiversity occasionally, which is like, it seems a more PC term for insanity. And I found that has just recently been added to some of the lists of marginalized groups. And I've wondered if that's going to grow. As much as there are certain problems with some people trying to attack the majority to protect the marginalized. Aside from all that, I do like the increasing in the inclusivity of the odd ones in our society. I like bringing in the marginalized, and I like diversity. However, I agree with Peterson that that equality of outcome thing is ridiculous. But for a while before even I was hearing the term neurodiversity, I was wondering when insane people were going to be added to that conversation. And I've noticed recently the term neurodiversity coming out. And so I wonder if the Mad Pride movement is going to be one of the next things that the left, I guess, pushes more. Michael says, I don't like how pride movements are annexed by activists. Look at what's happening with the gays. Exactly. I feel it stopped being about acceptance of homosexuality and more about politics. Absolutely. And so I'm hoping if Mad Pride ever catches on more, it doesn't get mixed up in that shit whatsoever. Because I do agree with Peterson also that for some activists, it's hard to see their love for the marginalized, and it looks a lot more like hate for the majority. And I love the majority. I think we should do everything we can to make places for the marginalized and our unique and odd ones, while at the same time still working to improve the places for the normal, quote unquote, normal people. I don't think we should sacrifice anything involving how we care about the categories when we're looking at the ones outside those categories. And I don't like the idea of attacking the majority to defend a minority. I believe in helping the minorities that need help, like on an individual basis, while at the same time still trying to make life better for people who aren't marginalized. I wish that could stop being at conflict with each other. HG Tudor says, hey boy, hey, nice to have you here. Sorry about the coughing. Michael says, I opened up about being bullied, and I added that I wanted autonomy and didn't want an activist to mediate between myself and society. And I got raged at. Huh, who did you get raged at by? Like, I always think that's great when someone says, I'm having a difficulty and I want to try to deal with it myself. So Grizz says, quit marginalizing the activists. Activists are people too. Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think while clearly some activists go too far, there's definitely a need for that in our society as well. And there are, fucking, I don't know what I said before. So I hope what I said was there are some activists that I see more hate for the majority than love for the minority. There's absolutely plenty of activists, I'm sure, doing it out of love. So I was only talking about the ones attacking. And even those, like, fucking everybody's doing the best they can with their understanding of reality. I really believe that. And so the activists are out there trying to make the world better. But fuck, so are the soldiers and the suicide bombers. I really think a lot of people that do things that I certainly wouldn't do are still driven by a desire to improve the universe. They just have a set of axioms inside them that add up to bad output. Michael says, let's just say I was bullied by the activists more than I was by my actual childhood bullies. So yeah, do be careful. Raged at by activists. So essentially my bullies treated me with more respect. HG says, thanks for the content. Adela says, chipmunk spotted. Yeah, I put out a bit of seed for the chipmunk because I know people enjoy seeing them. And Daniel says, are you sitting in a stair? Yeah, I am. So these are like the stairs to the basement of my house. And the reason I've been sitting down here recently, when I don't feel like being inside, one, it's really windy right now, and I think we would pick up that noise. But the other is, and I've got the door to the basement open, and the computer's just sitting in the doorway to the basement. But even just being a couple feet underground, and the basement's the coolest part of the house, although it's just like this dirt basement, you can't hang out in it. But with the door open here, it's really nice and cool. It's amazing how cold the basement gets. And sitting here with the door open, it's surprisingly cool compared to how hot it is a couple feet up. It's just brutally hot today. And yeah, after the first time, I did one stream, the one that didn't work out well, sitting here. I did get a couple messages of people saying they really liked this background. So that is part of the reason I've sat here a couple more times, was I got the feedback that people liked it. But also it's nice and cool down here, but also out of the wind because it's extremely windy today. I don't know how much noise there is from the wind blowing the trees, but at least it's not blowing across the microphone. Yeah, anytime I hang out outside now, I always bring out birdseed if I'm hanging out close to the house, and spread it around. So me and the chipmunk have been hanging out quite a bit this year. Yeah, cool. Glad you guys like the background. Sorry about the inferior video quality. The camera I'd been using for a long time, for some reason, even though it's a cheap attached camera, it was better than the built-in one. But for some reason, when I try to stream with that camera now, it fucks everything up. I can only do it with the built-in camera. So Grizz says, how am I doing? I woke up significantly depressed today. It's like nowhere near as bad as the dead of winter, but I'm still struggling with this fucking depression. I was less depressed a while ago. Yeah, so I'm depressed, but I'm all right with being depressed. I'm not letting it, I'm mindful of it. I'm observing the thoughts. I'm choosing and denying them. I'm not going with it. So I'm depressed, but okay. Daniel says, when you think about what a stare could symbolize. Yeah, okay, I hadn't thought of that, but the symbolism, the first thing that jumps to mind for me is that in a lot of guided meditations, you get told to walk down a staircase. So the first thing that jumped into my mind is the symbol of being at the bottom of a staircase and a couple feet underground. Is this being a portal to the underworld? The other world, the world where madness lies. So Caesar also asked how I was doing. Yeah, I've been depressed lately, and I haven't been depressed in the summer for like 10 years, I think. My first 2 cycles, I had 2 years of straight depression. They were long 3-year cycles, so I was depressed right through a summer twice. But this is the first time in years that, I mean, sometimes I'd have a bit of it, or something really bad happened, because even though there's a difference between sadness and depression, sadness can trigger depression. So there's been a couple of times I've had problems and I've dealt with some depression in the summer, but it was always very, very small amounts of time. I've been depressed for a while. It's got to be to do with doing the channel, how much both psychic, emotional energy, and how much magic energy I've had to put into doing the channel. Because since I've been practicing magic, I find oddly that mania appears to be a form of magical energy used properly. And so I think maybe I've pushed myself so hard the past couple months that I've used it up, and I'm feeling, depression feels more natural in the winter. Well, I'm fine with it. I don't want to just go on and complain, but there's something about being depressed in the summer, especially you get all that physical lethargy, your whole body feels so heavy with depression. It's so hard to move to begin with. Then you add to that the extreme heat we've had around here the past couple days, which also zaps my energy. But anyway, yeah. So Caesar says, wherein madness lies, bracket horror theme, yeah. And I enjoy horror fiction, and that was the point I made in our one called Apocalypse, where do you draw the line, is if mad pride is going to catch on to any degree, whether it's mad pride used as the term or whether it's just around neurodiversity, I just hope the mad community doesn't get all sensitive about language and start trying to ban media that doesn't use it properly. Because I like horror and I like the Joker, for instance. And there's some things in Gotham that I could imagine, like the television show, that I could imagine being looked at if the PC thing changes. That could be criticized, and I hope we don't lose that art. Because while it can be emotionally hurtful at times when you're feeling sensitive about having been institutionalized, I just hope that PC issues on this don't make it so. Although I don't think that can happen because it's so ingrained into our language to call things crazy when we mean bad, to call people nut jobs. It's so ingrained, I don't think you could attack it the same way. So HG says, have you heard of narcissistic, is that abuse or ABS? Okay, yeah, abuse. I've been through it. So no, nothing's coming to mind instantly as that I've heard something about specifically narcissistic abuse, but I do know that narcissistic people can be very abusive. It's unfortunate that you had to go through that. How are you doing now? Have you managed to process that abuse and get to a good place in life, or are you struggling because of it? Grizz says, don't neglect that silent retreat you've been thinking about. Could be your depression is demanding it. Yeah, maybe I need a few days of just zero communication with the world, zero talking, zero texting, zero messaging. But right at the moment, there's a few things I need to wrap up if I'm going to do it. There's a couple people I need to talk to at some point soon. So it's about finding a few days where, and ideally I like to do it when my wife and kids have stuff to do and are going to be busy anyway. So yeah, I'm going to try to do one soon, but I would like as much as possible to line it up in such a way that it doesn't inconvenience others too much. Caesar says, yeah, beware of pushing yourself too much. Mania gives lots of energy and then boom, a crash into depression. Joker is my favorite too, chaos incarnated. Absolutely. And we need to be able to use that sort of archetype of the chaos madman in some of our art, I think. Yeah, I do. I am very aware. Like, I take stock with myself of how I'm doing. I'm aware of how hard I've pushed myself. So although I wasn't expecting to be depressed this time of year, when it happened, I wasn't shocked by it because I know I've pushed myself extremely hard with this channel. I've been running with my internal gauges up into the orange and even pushing up into red for a while. But I've been handling it all right. Like, if I ever need to shut down, even if I have, lined up conversations, or, if the live full moon's coming up or something, if I'm ever like really fucking struggling and need to shut down, I just will. I won't push myself so hard that I'll fuck myself up too bad. But I'm not too worried by this reaction of depression. For me personally, it's not this way for everyone, but for me personally, the depression's safer than the mania. Mania gets too fucking high and a total psychotic break happens. I really lose total control. And that hasn't happened in 10 years. But I've been pretty fucking close a few times. But the mania is more dangerous for me than the depression. So even when we started the channel, my main concern about the summer was if the stress of doing this channel made me too manic and pushed me into a psychosis. So if I'm going to get a kickback from doing this too hard, I'd rather get surprise depression or increased depression than surprised and extreme mania. Now, right now, I'm missing the mania for sure, like the controlled levels, the mild to medium, even medium high. I can handle all of that, and I am pretty good at pulling myself back when I get too manic now. But the depression, yeah, is just safer, so I'm not too worried about this. HG says, thanks for answering. I'm trying to recover. It's the worst form of abuse. Well, I'm really sorry you went through that, and I hope maybe there's something the community here can do for you, helping you recover. And you say further down, you're trying to spread awareness anywhere you can. I know it's hard to talk much in the chat because you have to write so much, such small messages. If you have a lot that you want to say, feel free to write a whole bunch in the comment section once the video is up. It's easier to write there. Also, if you really want to talk about it, we could have a conversation if you'd like to have a discussion in public to help other people who've gone through the same thing. Write into sortingmyselfout0@gmail.com, and as soon as Ryan's got a bit more time that lines up with free time for you and I, we could have a discussion about it. And like I said earlier, anyone who is thinking about having a discussion with us, we never do those live. When we're talking to an audience member, like a community member, we always record it, and we can send you a copy of it ahead of time if you're on the fence about something. And we've edited them before if something's too personal. So Michael says, the sun and heat is insane, Mark. Love tropical weather, but this is crazy. I'm also feeling lethargic. And at this stage in my life, I'm fine. Okay, so you're in Ontario. Yeah, it's been really hot lately. Oh, I don't want to complain too much about it being too hot. Most of the year, it's way the fuck too cold. Grizz says, LOL self-interest. We need you to take care of yourself. Okay, yeah. The whole put on your own oxygen mask before anyone helping anyone else. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm really good at reading myself. Even when like what I consider very busy and too interactive, even that probably involves much more alone time and meditation and introspection than the average person gets, possibly ever. Uh, so I'm watching things. I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox for coping with the depression. I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox for coping with the mania. When you get really confident with knowing a machine, you can run it up into the red, put some high pressure on it, and you really know the limits of that machine and you've maintained it well. I'm very aware of how hard I'm pushing myself, and I'll be all right. If I ever really need to, I will just shut down completely. And Grizz says, if you want to check out some previous audience sessions, Ryan has made a playlist of them so you can find after this is over. Yeah, absolutely. Ryan's made a few playlists of a bunch of different stuff. So if you want to go through the other Lunatic Lives, or you want to go through the Coffees with Ryan or audience sessions, Ryan has done us the kindness of organizing them for us. So Daniel says, on a scale to 1 to 10, where do you give yourself about your well-being? I don't know how to answer that. Like, you asking on a scale of 1 to 10 how depressed I am, on a scale of 1 to 10 how content am I with my life? On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard am I pushing myself? I don't know. So as far as how depressed I am, compared to the worst depressed I can be, because I can be very, very depressed, I'd say I'm only at a 5. Like, it's enough that I'm feeling physical, like my body's responding physically, and I've got negative thoughts coming up. It's only a 5 compared to what it could be. However, how content am I with my life? Like, if overall, how content am I with the hand I've been dealt and where I am now? I'd say I'm probably up around an 8 or a 9. I'm not outraged that I get depressed anymore. I'm not outraged that I have these difficulties. I'm not sure what exactly this game is we're playing here, or what we are, where we come from, or where we go. I increasingly get the feeling this was the game I was meant to play. That it's not an accident or a mistake that life is so difficult. That the difficulties aren't life attacking me. That I'm being blessed with all the problems I most need, and that they're personally and perfectly tailored to me. Like, I was tempted even to give it a 10 of how content am I with my life. But no, I still have enough ego there, and there's some things that could be improved. But a lot of me, even to that, is saying, but that's exactly what you need. So you should give it a 10 because you've got the exact problems you should. So maybe it even is a 10 because it's best to have things to improve and work on. Right, and the thumbnail for this, I had put up, it said, fuck, what did it say? Insanity doesn't run in my family, and then something like it strolls along, taking its time to get to know us each individually and personally. I really do feel that way about my problems, about all of them. My problems are a gift the universe has given me that are just, tailor designed for me, custom made with the utmost of attention, knowing me better than I know myself. The universe gave me exactly what I needed, not what I thought I wanted. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else. But I'm content. I don't waste any time regretting anything. It's all so interwoven, interdependent. You don't know what small thing, if it had changed, that I wouldn't have the wife and kids I have, that I wouldn't be who I am. I don't think I'm wise enough to criticize life. HG says, I've seen your Jordan Peterson videos. Okay, yeah, and so I know we have a bunch of subscribers probably that just subscribed from the Jordan Peterson videos, like all those old ones that Andrew put up. So is this your first time watching anything by me and Ryan? Michael says, it makes sense, but how do you arrive at such universal acceptance? A lot of time alone. Well, that kind of alone where you realize you're not alone. Like Alan Watts says, spend enough time alone and you realize you're not alone. You'll realize you're surrounded by, insects that are curious about you, that will come over and crawl on you, that sit quiet and peacefully for a while outside. And all these little things come out that are hidden away when we're stomping around all the time. But then inside us as well, we're not a single thing, even inside our own minds. We're this weird multiplicity of things. We're not even alone inside our own heads. And like I said about the void earlier, I don't think we're alone in the universe. I think there's other levels to this. And spending a lot of time alone contemplating what life is, what consciousness is, what the universe is, what God is, has led me to feeling this way. And I've been this way so long now. Because at first, thinking about things in different ways is very, very hard. We often, like day-to-day life, think we can just change our thinking. Like, oh, if I learn something, I will just automatically adjust to that. But like the neuroplasticity shows that the longer you've been thinking certain things, you just engrave these trenches in your brain. And when you first try to start living a different way, when you first learn something new, you're fighting against that. So you're trying to trace this new path, but as soon as you stop focusing on it, you fall back to your old self. But when you follow certain things long enough and like you stick with it, like you keep thinking about it, like pushing your thinking on things, then eventually you trace new pathways. And I find like, so for a long time, it was hard for me to stop like actively lying, not even when you're not aware you're lying, or even like that you're on a subconscious level already lying to yourself. I mean, like actively just lying. It took me a long time of trying to catch that thought and stop it. Like, no, I've thought all these reasons through. I know why telling the truth is so important. Then you get your old thoughts like, yeah, but if you tell the fucking truth, this and this and this is going to happen. Just fucking lie. It's easier. And I would have to fight it all the time. But I've done it long enough. I've got the new pathway and I don't fight that anymore. It's the same thing with this feeling towards life, although it's not as ingrained. It is really settled in. I do have some of the old, like there's things inside me that still complain. And sometimes I still get caught up in those voices occasionally. But I usually don't stay stuck in them, and I notice them more, and it is becoming much more natural to accept things. Like the last time I got ripped off $200. And when I found out I got ripped off, my anger flared up for a moment, but I was really surprised at myself. I don't even know if it was a full second before the thought jumped into my head, like, do you want to be angry about this? And within a second, I think, of first having that flood of anger, I realized, no, I need to forgive this person. I need to send them love and blessings. And who the fuck am I to criticize that I got ripped off? Like, I don't know what the fuck I need. And I was shocked how quickly I could do that. And I didn't stay mad for over a second, I don't think, ever, when I thought of getting ripped off. And it was a lot of money to me. And it's much more pleasant. And I haven't been able to do this with everything. I can't do it with my depression. But I agree with Sam Harris that if you work on it long enough, you can choose whether or not to be angry. But at least in situations I've been in so far, I find I'm getting much, much better at that. Now, it becomes much harder if it's someone you love who's hurt you. This was like a stranger ripping me off. So that makes it all easier. I don't think I can do that with like anything. Some things will be more difficult not to get angry about the closer people are to you. But at least with that, I was able to not be angry for more than a second at a time. And it would come up now and then if I got reminded that I just lost that money, get angry for a second. And then I'd remind myself I could choose it. And I could remind myself that who the fuck am I to judge someone else? And I'm not going to get all righteous. And I would focus on sending that person blessings and like that hopefully they will stop doing this, and not even just to protect future victims, because that's not good for you to be a person ripping people off. And so I'd also remind myself, what would you rather be? Person who got ripped off or the person ripping people off? And that's instant. Like, no, I'd rather be the person who got ripped off than be the asshole ripping people off, because that's damaging to a far more important part of you than your bank account. Caesar says, love what Jordan says on life is suffering, how you handle it, etc. Mother Nature is most of the time a bitch, always out to get rid of us, hee. But she nature is also so beautiful. Absolutely, yeah. And I love what Peterson talks about with his life is suffering shit. And some people have criticized him and say there's more to life than that. And I agree. It's one of these things that's paralogical. Like all of heaven and all of hell is laid out before us at every moment. And we just tune into somewhere on the scale. But for people who are stuck in the suffering, the way Peterson talks about it is vital. And I think it's important to talk about sometimes suffering as if it's absolute, and to momentarily not look at the beautiful. But then also sometimes it's important to look at just the beautiful and to see how, especially with the idea that all evil serves the good, and that everything works out in the end, seeing that all of heaven's in front of us, and then learning to work with the sort of paralogical reality of that. So I love everything Peterson says about it and have no criticisms of it. On the other hand, also all of heaven is laid out in front of us at the very same time. Michael says, for me personally, solitude helped me realize how much I want to do and how much I want out of life. And I came to realize how much time I wasted running away from myself. Excellent. Well, I have time periods of that in solitude where I can think about things I want to do in life. I've also got a great peace and a feeling that I don't have to sort of actively do anything. what is it, wu wei, like not forcing. And I'm fairly detached from that sort of productivity equals value. Seems okay for me to just be. I think the same way that chipmunk doesn't have to worry about his plans or his effect on the world, that especially like if you're not harming others and if you're able to do it for a period of time, or whether it's taking some moments out of your day or whether it's taking a couple years alone, but I just seems okay to me to just be. And especially if while you're being, you're making a connection to something larger, to God, or you're just developing inside or connecting to the thought realm. Who knows what work we might do when we're dreaming, somewhere that may not seem real to us when we're awake, but perhaps somewhere just as real in a different way, with its own Akashic record and its own interlaced web of complexity beyond our understanding. HG says, why did you start your channel? So it's actually Andrew Jokum who started this channel. He started it and did Peterson's self-authoring program. And eventually he got tired of having so much of his life public. He took down all his private stuff, just left up the Peterson stuff. And he asked me and Ryan Holsapple to take over the channel so that he wasn't completely abandoning the audience. So I took over the channel pretty much because I was asked to. And like anyone I did talk to it about, like my wife encouraged me. She thought it was a good idea. Obviously, Andrew thought it was a good idea. Ryan wanted me to do it. And then people like Grizz, who had commented back on the 3 podcasts I did with Andrew when he was doing the channel. Those people as well, I sort of considered the universe asking me to do it. And then ultimately, I also checked with my angel, and my angel told me I should do it. So yeah, I pretty much am doing this because I was asked to do it. And I'm continuing to do it because it seems to be helping some people out. So Michael says, yeah, fuck it, I won't worry about answering everything. This one caught my eye. So Michael says, escapism sucks, plus I'm a natural extrovert. Hiding inside myself turned out to be more painful than just going out and living. While I have perhaps a couple sub-personalities that are extroverts, I'm very introverted. And especially people with a high sense of conscientiousness, apparently, and I don't have it myself. Well, some sort of sub-personalities do. I have some of that, I'm sure, but it's turned way down. But I realize for some people, like the need to work is just built into them, and they don't feel right if they're not. And that some people don't like escapism. However, and so this isn't me arguing with you. I think it's great that people are different. We need all kinds of different people. And we may have many other things in common, but on that, you and I are very different. I'm very content to hide inside of myself. I love being in my own little world, and I have no problem personally with escapism. Like spending time reading fiction, watching movies, playing video games, meditating, doing magic rituals, just contemplation, making up stories, just relaxing, being in a state of now, losing yourself to a sunset, feeding the birds. I enjoy all of that immensely. And yeah, I have to push myself to connect to the world. Adela says being mindful can be exhausting, but also an amazing inspires. I don't find being mindful exhausting. And so I'm not not arguing. I'm just sharing how I experience it somewhat differently. And I think it's because, though, I get so many fucking racing thoughts. I have such a fucking full head. And whether I'm being mindful or not, that's all going on. And if I'm caught up in it, it gets more out of control than when I'm mindful. So the effort of being mindful is less than the energy it takes to run on the fucking treadmill when I just let my mind go on its own. It'll go way too fucking fast. And yeah, I'm just like stuck on a treadmill trying to keep up with all that activity. So the effort I needed to put into mindfulness, and again, it's like anything, you do it enough and it stops taking effort, starts being natural. Just paid off in so much more control over the activity, although still probably far less control than the average person has over. Well, maybe, I don't know. What the fuck's the point in comparing? I think I'm going to get off soon, but I'll stick around a little more, but I'm not going to worry from this point on about responding to everything. And sorry, I know that sucks when you take the time to write a message and the person, or ask a question and the person doesn't respond, but I'm getting tired from this, and keeping up with like trying to read them all will just be too difficult. So I'm just going to read a few more that catch my attention and then take off. So Wolf Slayer says magic rituals. Yeah, I've gotten involved in doing some sort of high magic, just like an extension of religion and meditation, really. But yeah. Caesar says, I have an extroverted subpersonality to Mercury, but I'm also mostly introverted. Extroverted subpersonality does make me exhausted after a while, though, so I have to retreat back into myself, relax. Yeah, I'm the same way. I can sometimes get those subpersonalities active, and I am capable of feeding off the energy of other people. Like I used to play in bands, and I used to do some work with like Trauma Films, that like little cult independent company. And I can get in that extroverted mood where you're very loud and present. I can be that sort of life of the party type mode, and can temporarily, where you people paying attention to you like feeds you an energy, but it's like a rush that gets exhausting for me. And then afterwards, I need a lot of time to just be by myself. Michael says, I love film and fiction too, just so long as I don't abuse it to run away from myself. Yeah, and I no longer consider any of the escapism personally running away from myself whatsoever. That's me exploring myself. No, like a dream. You're making all of it. We co-create when we consume fiction. We're the ones who create the world in our head. And then even just daydreaming, meditation, all of that stuff that you can consider escapism. You can also look at that as really, really, really running into yourself as opposed to running away. So the last comment, Caesar says, thank you for responding so generously, and a great stream. Keep it up, man. Until next time, have a good hot summertime. It's hot here in Norway too. Oh, cool. You're listening from Norway. I love that. By the way, when we find out that someone's far away watching this, that's so fucking weird. And it's so fucking magical. We live in the end times, just like fucking gods. Actually, what Eric Weinstein said on Joe Rogan recently was that now we're like gods without the wisdom of gods. I really believe that too. It's amazing where we live in a time where I can be sitting on my basement steps looking into this little fucking portal and talking to people all over the world. It what Eric said also reminded me of a joke Colin Quinn told. And the whole thing's on YouTube, so I recommend people check it out. Colin Quinn has a comedy special called Long Story Short, where he goes to the history of civilization, sort of, in like an hour and a half comedy routine. But at one point near the beginning, he said something I thought was just fucking hilarious about like people nowadays. He said, it's amazing. We've developed to the point where we have like nanotechnology that can separate, a single strand of DNA to deal with like a world epidemic. But we still need security guards at the zoo to keep people from climbing over the fence and kicking the polar bear in the nuts just to be a star on YouTube. And I thought that was fucking hilarious. It is amazing to think of the amazing shit we can do now. We've got a fucking rover on Mars, and yet at the same time, during a celebration, I think over sports, someone was eating horse shit. We can genetically engineer organisms, and yet people are still eating Tide Pods. It's ridiculous what humanity's become. Yeah, we're getting some nice wrap-up messages here, so I think I'm going to get going. I hope everyone has a great fucking weekend. We'll hang out again randomly sometime. And for anyone who always isn't online when I just happen to pop on randomly, I go on live every full moon at midnight. So that is the one scheduled one, midnight Eastern Standard Time. So Grizz says, thanks again. Yeah, everyone's saying thanks. And Michael says, I find it remarkable that we all have the computing power to send a shuttle to the moon in our own pocket. Yeah, it's a fucking miracle. And for all anyone else complains about modern technology or the mistakes YouTube's making, like, this is one of the upsides. So thanks to YouTube and everyone who's ever worked on getting this weird fucking alternate dimension of ones and zeros up and running. So I hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll hang out again sometime, and Lunatic love to all.